Hey guys, Christy here with Little Roots Ranch, and today we're going to talk about gardening tips, tasks, and things to start sowing in February for Zone 8B, and I'm in the Pacific Northwest in Stanwood, Washington. Hello. So February is warmer than January, though our January this year was pretty nice, besides like the cold freeze at the very beginning. But you'll find that the temperatures, even though the days can get up to say 50 degrees or whatnot, your nighttime temperatures are still in like the 40s and 30s, and we're still having hard freezes. I find on the farm that of the whole year, I get the most frost, hard frosts in February. So it's still, we're not in spring yet, but you know, we're getting really close, and those daytime temperatures are sure nice for working outside. We also, what was it, the last 2 years we've had snow in February on Valentine's Day, I remember that. And so I don't know if we're gonna get snow this year or not, or we'll get a second snowing, I guess, in February. But just because it's feeling warmer, we're not outside of the danger zone yet, but we're getting really close, which is really exciting. But February is really exciting because it's where you get to start a lot of the seeds. Granted, most of it's towards the end of February. Depending on your microclimate or something like that, it might be different. It might be earlier, might be later. But generally for me, late February is the time for starting all the things I'm going to transplant. But I'll get to that in a second. I do want to talk about what to sow. You can sow things in the ground, actually, already, well, late February. Of course, under a cloche or greenhouse or whatnot. And then, of course, starting things inside for transplant, which is really exciting. But first, let's talk about some tasks to get done, and then, or things that you can do or should have done or whatever. And then we'll talk about what you can get in the garden. So that's exciting. So in February, there are plenty of tasks that you can get done, even though it's cold out and you're so excited for the garden. But some of those things are prepping for the garden. For instance, if you're going to use any cloches, or if you have plastic to put down, or like portable greenhouse things that go over beds or whatever, you're going to want to go ahead and put those down now, so that way it can start to help heat up the soil and also dry out the soil by deflecting the rain and stuff like that. So that way the soil's in better condition when you go to plant into it in late February, if you're seeing this early in the month, of course. Another thing you can do is consider buying your bare root plants and trees. So like fruit trees, rhubarb, asparagus, berry bushes, whatever. If you're buying bare root anything, you want to go ahead and do that in February, and you're going to want to go ahead and get that into the ground while they're still in dormancy, which is really exciting. I did a lot of fruit trees last year. The ducks are coming over, so you might hear them. Another thing you could do is, if you're growing potatoes, you want to make sure that you've ordered your potatoes, because that'll be coming in March. But you want to make sure that you have ordered them if you're growing them, and also you can chit them and sprout them and get them ready for planting when we do roll into March. So that's exciting. I know a lot of people remember the Peas by President's Day, which this year it's Monday the 21st of February, and you know, but that's when a lot of people identify planting their peas, all the peas, the shelling and the snow and the snap and all that stuff, and also greens, and that's kind of, for me, a signal. I also rely on like nature and like how, like if the dandelions are I saw a little tiny flower. Granted, we've admittedly have had a different January, but relying on those cues. But as like for safety, the late February after President's Day is generally a go time for people. So that's always really exciting. If you're unsure if your soil is, if you work your soil and you're unsure, like, because you can't just go into your soil at any time, because you can actually damage it, especially when it's waterlogged. But there's a way to test when your soil is ready. So what you're going to want to do is dig down 6 to 8 inches and pull out like a handful of dirt, and you're going to want to put it into a ball. Now my soil is still too wet, So I'm not demonstrating that because it'll just stay a clod or whatever. And I've got clay soils like I'm sure most of you have. But you want to create it into a ball and then take your hand out and just toss it up like 6 to 8 inches. And when it comes down, you want to see like what it does. So if it just crumbles all around, that means that your soil is dried out enough that it's ready. But if it stays in like a really hard ball or like only slightly crumbles into a few pieces or something like that, then that means that there's still too much moisture in your soil. And if you're working it, like especially if you do tilling or something like that, you're actually gonna, I know that the urge to get things done earlier, but trust me, it's better to wait, because if your soil's not ready for it, you can actually do more harm than good. And ultimately, that's not what you want to do. So I know that we just had, I'm filming this on the last day of, or almost last day of January, and we're just coming off of, I think we had 10 to 14 days of where it hasn't rained. And so that's, I've gotten so much done. I'm really appreciative of that. So my soil is a lot drier, but I know that coming up soon, we're starting another streak of rain. So that's not sustainable. But anyways, next I'm going to talk about things that we can sow either inside under a cloche or greenhouse or outside, which is really exciting. For sowing outside, there's turkeys. Hi boys. For sowing outside, there's so many different things that you can sow, which is really exciting because this is the first time, again, late February, that we're able to get outside and actually get into the dirt. The things that you can sow, I wrote them down because I don't want to forget anything, but chervil, fennel, sweet cicely, edible flax, garlic, onion sets, shallots, fava beans, shelling peas, snow peas, soup peas, and arugula. Those are things, again, end of February, that you can put right into the soil. They'll take a little longer to germinate, of course, but they are accustomed to germinating in cooler soil, and so that's why they're the first to go in the ground. Obviously, nobody's putting tomatoes or peppers or anything outside yet. It's far too cold. This is my greenhouse, and so if you're sowing in a greenhouse or under cloche or some kind of something that protects the seedlings, there's even more that you can get started, again, late February, but I wrote them down so that way I didn't forget anything. You can sow your beets, spinach, cilantro, arugula, Asian greens, broccoli rabe, Chinese cabbage, collards, kale, radishes, all peas, lettuce, endives, and mustards, which is really exciting because all of those are amazing. And it just feels so nice to be able to plant so many different things. And lastly, of course, there's sowing indoors, which is the biggest list because there's so many different things that you can sow indoors, which is amazing because, again, protected climate. But those are rhubarb, sorrel, celery, celeriac, fennel, parsley, broccoli, cabbage, cauliflower, kale, eggplant, peppers, tomatoes, onions, chives, leeks, dandelion, endive, and lettuce. So that's really, really exciting of all the things that you can start both indoors, undercover, and outdoors. If you have any questions or anything, go ahead and leave those down below. I'm happy to answer them. If you're just getting started with a garden, I'm so happy for you because it's so awesome to grow your own food. And ultimately, all of these are just guides, right? And obviously what I speak to are things that work on my farm, but our microclimates might be different. If you're in the city, you're on a heat island, and so it's gonna be warmer and you're gonna be able to get things out earlier. If you're up on a hill or on a south slope or something like that, you might have a little bit cooler temperatures and stuff. But ultimately, it's what works best for you, and a lot of that is through trial and error. And even year to year, some things are different because you may be able to start tomatoes in like late January one year, and then maybe should have waited till like late March the next year, depending on weather conditions. Sometimes we have really late freezes that do a lot of damage. But nonetheless, thank you for watching. And like I said, any comments, questions, concerns, or anything, just drop them below, and I'll see you on the next video.